Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another video. Welcome back to another episode on Beyond the Touchline. This is the post game week show for game week 18. Now, just before we get in, I just want to say thank you very much for the support. The previous video, the pre-game week show for game week 18, we're approaching 100 views actually on that video as of recording. I don't know if we'll make it when this video is being uploaded, but I do hope we do. So thank you very much for the support. It means a lot to me. And yeah, I hope everyone can continue to support the channel, continue to support the series, and let's just make it better together, shall we? But yes, we're going to jump right in quickly. 10 games to talk about as always. Drop a like on the video if you guys are enjoying this series, and of course subscribe if you're new around here. And let's dive right in. Right, of course, as we always do, we always look at the Premier League table to see if there are any massive changes. Of course, Liverpool ultimately extend their lead over Chelsea, but of course Arsenal won their game and they have leapfrogged Chelsea, so now the gap at the top is 6 points. But of course, Liverpool have a game in hand. Now, from the Champions League spot, Nottingham Forest, to the next European spot being Newcastle, it's now 5 points. The gap is starting to increase. Of course, it's always in the midfield battle, it's always very tight. From 5th Newcastle all the way down to, I'd say, probably 10th of Brighton, we're looking at, you know, just a 3-point gap, and then to Brentford it's a 5-point gap. But even then, if you look from Brighton all the way to Man United, it's a 4-point gap over there. And in terms of relegation spots, I mean, Everton to Ipswich, you've got a 5-point gap, so it's still pretty tight in different aspects of the Premier League table. But by the looks of things, I think the top 4, they look like they're slightly running away with it already. I mean, definitely Liverpool are running away with it. They're now 13 points ahead of Newcastle, essentially, with an extra game in hand as well. They have a 4-game buffer, essentially. So I think Liverpool have nothing to worry about in that sense. As for the statistics, Salah obviously scored again over the weekend. That's put him up to 16 goals. Palmer scored as well, putting up at 12. Isak scored as well, putting him up to 11. And Wimbledon's score still stays at 10. But we've got, again, Chris Wood not scoring, still stuck at 10. Cunha, his goal, has also put him up to 10 goals. So the Golden Boot, in terms of the second position onwards, arguably is getting a little bit tighter, considering how Haaland has essentially not scored goals in quite a long time now. And as for the assists, essentially nothing has changed really. Obviously, other players across the board in the Premier League have got an assist instead of the top 5 players. Now, as for my predictions, well, as you can tell, I think it's not too bad this time around, isn't it? I predicted the outcome of 5 matches, so by being a bit safe, I guess that it worked out in my favour. Of course, again, there are shocks we'll talk about later, but I think to get half of it right this time around in terms of the outcome isn't the worst case scenario. I think I was a bit close, essentially, to getting the results here and there, like the exact results. But yeah, if you look at the results now, obviously City drew with Everton. Newcastle smashed Villa 3-0. Nottingham Forest beat Tottenham 1-0. Bournemouth drew with Palace. Chelsea lost to Fulham 2-1. West Ham did beat Southampton by 1-0. Wolves did beat Manchester United actually by 2-0. Liverpool continuing the hot run of form, 3-1 against Leicester. Brighton drawing with Brentford, and Arsenal getting a slim 1-0 win against Ipswich. So we've got the results now. Let's talk about the matches. Of course, the first game we're talking about will be Man City and Everton. Now, as always, you know, the misery of Man City continues to compound. Did they have the chance to win? Yes, especially from the spot. Erling Haaland missing his second penalty in the Premier League. I think the last one he's missed hit the woodwork, and now it's a great save from Jordan Pickford. I mean, hilarious antics really from Jordan. But essentially, again, I think he's just got to do, you know, ultimately the lack of confidence. If you look at the statistics as well, City had 24 shots compared to Everton's 8. Yet City only managed to score 1 goal because they're not able to get the shots on target. Towards the end of the game, City looked like they were struggling again, and they were just trying to take shots, you know, from outside the box from anywhere, essentially. So again, it shows the desperation that's within the club to try to get a goal, but ultimately unable to do so. But don't get me wrong, I think City started both halves very well, very lively, in fact. But they just lost steam somehow halfway through the half, and because of that, you know, you just couldn't seem to attack anymore. As for Everton, I think their goal, I think it came from, I wouldn't say a mistake from City, but obviously, you know, a very huge defensive error-ish in my opinion. You know, Akanji just missing the ball completely, allowing DI to just get a shot there. But I mean, you got to give credit to the man where it's due. It's a fantastic goal, really good technique to just glide the ball into the top corner. I mean, Ortega was just rooted to the spot. So ultimately, yeah, it's a great goal from Everton. Bernardo Silva's goal was a little bit, actually not a little bit, rather very, very scruffy. But again, if you're looking at City's perspective, it's awful. I mean, you've got to understand that now, essentially, the club has conceded so many goals now. We went from winning 16 out of 18 to now 1 out of 9 in the Premier League, which is just got awful. I mean, it's again relegation form, evidently. And we've conceded 26 goals since the start of November, and ultimately the only side conceding more goals than us is Heidenheim in Bundesliga, 28. We've just essentially lost too many goals, conceded too many goals this year, and of course Erling Haaland not scoring. There are many factors essentially. Again, things need to change at the club, I think is needless to say. It's getting very apprehensive, I think, as we go into each game now. As a fan, I think I'm ultimately just more concerned because the pattern looks like to be that we can start the games really well. We're able to get goals in at the start, but that's about it. If we don't, we're kind of in trouble for the rest of the game, and that was what happened with Villa. But Villa just completely dominated us from the first minute, essentially. But for this one, I felt we really stood a chance of winning the game, had the possession, had the shots, had the ability to win games. We just didn't. So again, poor from City. I think as always now, it looks like it's a trend. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen moving forward. But again, you know, I have my concerns for the club for sure. But as for Everton, I mean, to get another point, you know, Everton have got to take it at this point in time. So yeah, props to Everton really. I mean, they've got another point. So that puts them up to 15th, and they've been unbeaten in their last 4 games. So what can I say? Right, Newcastle Villa. Now, I think this game was really interesting. Now, first of all, I think we should talk about the red card on Jean Duram. I'm not exactly too sure. I think for me, it's a strong yellow at the bare minimum. I mean, whether or not it was intentional to step on the player on the floor, for example, but ultimately when you're sort of running at that pace to try to get the ball, you sort of lose a little bit of your footing. And you know, I don't really want to comment on that because obviously I'm not you know, a special referee, especially as a referee to look into that. And obviously VAR made the decision to give it a red card. I can't really say much about it unless it's really clear. I felt this one, to me, at least at the bare minimum, was a strong yellow. I think a red might be slightly too harsh on Jean Duram. I think, you know, I don't know what the point of judgment is. I mean, we're looking at intention, etc. But clearly the play was on the floor. Clearly Jean Duram was moving at a pace where it was going to be, I'll say, harder to avoid him than to, you know, leap over him, for example. So I think on that account, you know, you want to give it a foul, sure. Whether or not it's a red card, I don't really know. And obviously, I think that's something to set up the rest of the game because the red card came in quite, I wouldn't say early, but halfway through the second half. But, you know, when you've got 4 quarters in the game, for example, you know, having a red card in the second quarter just means that Villa will have to survive, you know, for the rest 2.5 quarters without a player essentially being down to 10 men. Now, at that point in time, Newcastle obviously won the lot, but I think you gotta give credit. The goal from Anthony Gordon was sublime. I think one of the best goals I've seen so far this week, and probably since the start of the Premier League season. Goal of the season contender, probably, but I mean, you've got to just respect and got to admire that goal. But Newcastle really took that red card to fruition. But to be honest, I think they've dominated in the first minute to the end. It's just that, you know, that red card allowed them to compound a little bit of on that domination. But, you know, to win 3 consecutive Premier League games for their first time since last year, if I'm not wrong, since the start of last season actually, and now to win 3 matches with 3+ goals is a great run of form here that I'm witnessing from Newcastle. And I think they've got to give themselves, you know, a pat on the shoulder essentially, because it's beautiful. It's fantastic from Newcastle. The form that they're having now is sublime. You know, I mean, they've won 3 games straight now, and I think, you know, they can only tell themselves to continue this run of form, to just try to close their gap to Nottingham Forest, who are in the top 4 right now. You know, they've just got to keep pushing. Essentially, this is very positive here from Newcastle. The football that they're playing is really good, and to smash Villa out of the park in that manner as well, I felt was really brilliant. You know, sometimes even with a red card, you know, teams can really play still, you know, as if they still had 11 players on the pitch. But Newcastle really showed that they're up there and they're there to really take points off whenever necessary. And I like that from Newcastle. I think as for Villa, yeah, I mean, they got smashed in this one. It's going to be very difficult for them to, I'd say, even come back once, You know, they had that red card. I think it was pretty much the end of the game for Villa. I just felt that, you know, things wouldn't have changed essentially for them. So it's not looking too positive for Villa again. As I said, you know, this up and down form that Villa are having here, it's really, really not good. Again, Unai Emery obviously needs to think. But of course, I think the Champions League run is still pretty decent. So I guess that's something for them to look forward to every time when they play. Yes, but ultimately I felt quite clear, at least in, you know, in this particular matchup, you know, Newcastle were just a much better team and they clearly deserve to win. And yeah, Villa will just have to dig deep to figure out again how they're gonna move and approach games moving forward, especially, you know, if they do have a red card. But of course, with Jean Duran not available in the next game, ultimately to just strike it down, they've got to play Ollie Watkins. I don't think he's injured. So, but yeah, so it's going to be challenging, I think, for Villa moving forward into the next game. You know, missing a striker that I felt like, you know, has been really, really good for them when it comes to scoring goals. Nottingham Forest, Tottenham, a 0-0. Tottenham did have a red card, but that's at the end of the game, so I think it doesn't really matter, essentially, the outlook of the game. But I think this is a game where, again, you're a little bit perplexed because clearly Tottenham were the better team in this one, statistically wise, and I felt like the chances they created were a lot better. Sells with wonderful saves. But obviously that one chance that Nottingham Forest had, and they took it and they scored and they managed to hold on. That to me suggests how defensively good Nottingham Forest have been, how they've managed to able to take charge of games a lot better since last year. A win's a win, ultimately. And these wins don't come by as easy as it looks on paper. And clearly, I think this was one of the more hard-fought wins Nottingham Forest had to go by. One can argue a bit of element of luck here and there, but essentially very, very crucial for Nottingham to continue to find that trajectory, to try to get those goals in for them. And obviously just that 0-0 was clearly enough for the game. But Tottenham, again, you know, missing chances, not putting balls at the back of the net. That is terrible again for Tottenham's perspective. And again, just a continual sheer lack of consistency. They've now only won their last one in their last 5 games. And that puts them now in 12, and they've lost 9 games already this season. It's not looking good for Tottenham. They, again, at point in time, they look very, very good. I mean, the game is Man United in the EFL Cup. They've shown positivity over there, and then now to just come and just to lose against Nottingham in that fashion, it's just perplexed, honestly, to see the way Tottenham are playing, and you just don't have an answer really to their questions. Why they're performing like this? And I don't feel that they're playing different football every week. I think it's just a matter of clearly the team just doesn't want to. It doesn't seem like they're able to perform on a consistent basis. But again, you know, Nottingham Forest, you've got to give credit to them again. They've won now 10 Premier League games already, double digits. I think it's really more than the last season, to be honest. And, you know, they're still flying, obviously. And they're proving that they're able to convert games even when they're up against it. It's clearly against the run of play to win by a 0-0, but it's a win nonetheless. And again, as I said, the ability to hold games, the ability to channel games, the ability to control games when you don't have possession essentially at all throughout the game, and to just hold back. And you've obviously got to rely on the keeper a little bit to make good saves, which clearly Matt Sells did. Would I call it a really well executed game from Nottingham? I think Forest did play really decently well considering, you know, the quality on both sides. Yeah, I just think Tottenham were bad. You know, I think when everything was in Tottenham's favour except the result, I think you've got to think that Tottenham should have just done a lot better than what they've done in this game. So that's my take on that. But again, props to Nottingham. It's another win for them. Right, Bournemouth and Palace. Now, I think this comes to me as like one of the first shocks of the weekend. To me, at least, you know, 0-0. Ultimately, as I said, it's going to be a poor result for Bournemouth. I think this is a game where they theoretically should be winning. You've got to understand Palace, they aren't necessarily the best at the moment. Yes, they've sort of picked up a couple of results here and there lately, but still, you know, I think looking at form book, looking at how the players have been performing, ultimately, I think Bournemouth just stood a better chance to get the result over the line. And they had the chances again, missing some really, really good chances, not taking chances seriously. But ultimately, I also felt that when they had the chances, they just missed that final touch. Like every time in-swinging ball, the final pass was just lacking at the end of the day. Not challenging enough. As for Palace, I mean, again, they were just holding on. out on their own, essentially. Yes, they've had the possession. I mean, the possession is rather equally split, and I think passes well equally split. But the ability to create those clear-cut chances I felt weren't as good as Bournemouth. I think Bournemouth look a lot more threatening. They look more frightening on the attack. But ultimately, again, Bournemouth, some missed chances here and there, which ultimately meant that they were not able to convert their shots. And I think it's a poor result for Bournemouth. But I think it's also partially maybe a good thing in the sense where they've got to look at it again and sort of have to figure out, again, moving forward, how they're going to take chances. Games like these where they theoretically should win. And I think, again, looking at the performance in the Premier League so far this season, they're challenging for a lofty position in their eyes. And they really have to take games like this very seriously because theoretically, these are their opponents of their sort of similar level. So, but if they're able to convert results against teams that are better than them, these are the sort of games in their eyes they feel that, they should be doing a lot better than just garnering, a 0-0 result. So it's not good, as I've said. But of course, games like these do happen in the Premier League, when you just somehow just can't find the ball at the back of the net. You can't put the ball at the back of the net. But I think from Palace's perspective, I think it's not too bad for them to hold this game to a 0-0 draw. I mean, away from home as well, Vitality Stadium. It's not too bad from Palace's perspective. Did they have a chance to maybe sneak in a 1-0 win from their end instead? I think probably. But yeah, they would have needed slightly more effort than that because I think the game was pretty even statistically. But I think still, in terms of the chances that were created, who would have been more threatening, who would have stood a better chance of winning? I still think the ball, still like in Bournemouth's hands, but obviously they didn't take it for this one. Right, Chelsea-Fulham, this was definitely 100% a shot in my eyes. I mean, Fulham with a late show, obviously a last-minute winner from Rodrigo. Chelsea, how did I feel they performed in this game? Cole Palmer's goal was exquisite. The accuracy slotted to the bottom corner, brilliant. And I think Chelsea had a couple of chances after that to make the game count, make the game work in their favour. And Fulham only started to come together towards the end of the game. I wouldn't say it was an even game, to be honest. I mean, maybe statistically it looked like it. And somehow Chelsea didn't really have that level of possession that I think we would have expected them. And I felt it was just a game where Chelsea maybe just weren't as solid as they've usually been, at least for the past couple of games. And, Fulham just really took that to their advantage. But the last goal, I swear, it was closer to missing than actually scoring. It was so in the bottom corner. I mean, even the keeper, Robert Sanchez was rooted to the spot there. He couldn't do anything about the goal. But really, really well worked attack from Fulham. But ultimately, I think it was really close to missing. But you've got to give credit to Fulham where it's due. They're continually fighting 4 games. And maybe in that sense, they deserve to win. I mean, I didn't watch the game, watched the highlights only, but they really were lively towards the end of the game. And of course, this is their first win in Stamford Bridge after so long. I think they've lost like 11, the last 11, past like 11 out of 18 maybe, something like that. But it's clearly not good for Chelsea, especially when I said, yes, I don't think they're looking in a position to compete for the Premier League title just yet. Maybe they still lack a little bit there. But I think any chance of trying to close their gap to Liverpool, considering how good they've been, you still want to push for that. And even if they're not trying to beat Liverpool for the title, you've got to understand that they've got Arsenal behind them, they've got arguably Nottingham Forest behind them, but are trying to push up there to be up there. Because you must understand, at this point in time, Arsenal 36 points, Chelsea 35 points, Nottingham Forest 34 points. The second place and fourth place essentially just separated by 2 points. And these are games where, again, when you sort of be expected to win, you would want to win. Yes, don't get me wrong, Fulham are a very, very good side. But as of late, again, looking at the form book, they've just suffered 3 draws, essentially. Okay, maybe not suffered, because considering they drew against Liverpool, Fulham, as Liverpool, Tottenham and Arsenal. But then now essentially Fulham are looking like having a very stellar season, because past 4 games against the top 6 sides, and they managed to garner 7 points, which to me is 6 points, which to me is a great result from Fulham's perspective. So what can I say? I think it's poor from Chelsea, fantastic from Fulham. Fulham have got to be really happy about it. I mean, a great Christmas present, I guess, for them to this. I mean, ultimately, again, it's a derby, right? So to win a derby, it's all about glory, it's about pride. The Fulham admin just really took the mick out of Chelsea. But yes, a great game in my opinion. I think from Fulham's perspective, it's a great game. I think from a neutral fan as well, I think he had a lot of action. But from Chelsea's perspective, yeah, clearly wasn't good enough. Right, Southampton West Ham. Now, Ivan Juric has come in, and honestly, I felt he's done a reasonably good job in his first game in charge. I watched this game, but to be honest, I felt West Ham shouldn't have gotten the win, and the manner in which they've gotten a win as well, to me, is so slim. The goal that Jarrod Bowen scores a little bit scruffy. The ball in the box, defenders, I guess, not really equal to what was happening. The action was going on. It just allowed Bowen to just take a touch, really full crook with a flick over his head into Bowen's path. But Southampton were lively in that game. Southampton had big chances to put the ball in the back of the net. But we've got to thank Fabianski for making good saves. And of course, he obviously got injured after that. But we've also got to thank Areola for making really good saves. And we've got to thank the defenders as well for doing a reasonably good job. Of course, I think from West Ham's perspective, it's going to look a little bit concerning because Kilman is now, I think, injured. He obviously got a bit, he had to sub off in that game early on in the half. Fabianski looks like he's suffering a really big injury, so that's not really good as well. But to get this win over the line, I think West Ham, I have to admit, it's a little bit lucky. A draw would have been a fair result. I think a loss would have also made sense. I felt Southampton, especially in the first half, they really had the chances to make it count. Good balls coming in, headers, for example. Yes, despite having the saves from the goalkeeper, but they also had other chances which they've missed. And I felt like they've at least minimally scored a goal. But I think it's positive, when, as I said, how bad Southampton have been this entire season. If they're able to continue a form like this, not exactly results form, but in terms of being, chance creation, being able to still create chances on a pretty consistent basis, I think they would stand a better chance of picking up results in a game, for example, when I think this was a game that showed that little step they could have taken. Hopefully, Ivan Juric is going to look into this and understand that, there is a level of potential maybe that's within this team. And if he's able to, cook something, then I think Southampton, would stand a better chance of fighting. I mean, they're the only team left with single-digit points now in the Premier League season, which, again, arguably is like a Sheffield United season. But even then, at this point in time, Sheffield United had like 2 more points than them last season. So, yeah, but ultimately, Southampton are continuing the horrid form. West Ham are beating their last 4 Premier League games, which, again, as though as Lopetegui is able to do something like that, it's not the end of the world for me. Again, my expectation of West Ham is never too high. It's all about just them being competitive week in, week out. We can't expect to see them, continually losing games, having negative goal difference at the end of the season, for example. Even if it's negative, it can't be too negative. But from the last 4 games, it's not the end of the world for me. I think it is still okay. But of course, I think there's still a lot of work to be done within this team. But yes, that's how I saw this game. Right, Wolves 2, Manchester United 0. Once again, the misery is still there. Misery is compounding for Manchester United. I think this is another game which I'm again really confused-ish. Obviously, the Bruno Fernandes red card. It's a double yellow, which resulted in a red card. I mean, when you are playing and you want to get the result, and you have arguably Bruno Fernandes being the best player, you've lost your best player on the pitch. It was going to be challenging, wasn't it, to get a result. Now, Cunha's goal, the in-swinging corner, the 0.00 XG, brilliant, honestly. That's just crazy in my eyes. The way they got in, and obviously Manchester United now can see two goals from direct corners now. One against Tottenham. Heung-min Son scored that one. But of course, I think at the end, the second goal was a little bit. They just sealed the deal essentially, considering how Manchester United just pushed all the players forward and in search of an equaliser. All out attack essentially, and that clearance was good enough for the players, the 2 players to just run. I think Cunha was there to pick up the pieces and unselfishly pass on the Hwang Hee-chan was smashing the back of the net to just seal the game. Victor Pereira now have won 2 out of 2 games for Wolves. Again, this was a point in time when Gary O'Neill also won 2 games for Wolves, and obviously after that lost 4 in a row. So I don't know. Again, it is very hard to tell what's going to happen with Wolves. As for Manchester United, I think it's more predictable again. Just like Tottenham, 1-1 in the last 5 games. and it's just not good enough. Again, the win only came against Man City, which is also equally very annoying. Where was that fighting spirit, essentially, Manchester United, when they were able to convert the win against City? Now they couldn't convert against all these other teams. So, but you know, I think, you know, the problems that Manchester United still exist, even when Amorim coming in. You know, it's the same thing. I think, you know, the changes need to be made at the club. You essentially need a goalkeeper, you need 4 new defenders, you need 2 to 3 new midfielders, you need 2 to 3 new attackers. Essentially, the whole team needs to change. It's the same story again, you know. No matter how many managers you're going to change at the club, you know, if I don't know if again it's 100% the players or not, but ultimately I still feel that things have to change, and I'm not the one to answer, you know, what's happening, because I'm not there to understand what's happening behind the scenes. I mean, you've got to understand, you know, how a club is being run. You've also got to look behind the scenes, you know, whether or not the owners are backing them up, whether or not the players as well are liking the situation at the club, etc, etc, etc. There's so many factors that come into play. It's not just what happens on the pitch. What happens on the pitch can be a reflection of what's happening behind the scenes, in my opinion, and to me at least, what I'm seeing is just god awful. I mean, this is just diabolical, really, for Manchester United again. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, no Rashford again. Garnacho was in this game, but it's poor. So I expected a draw. I mean, I predicted a draw, and I didn't get the draw. And I think a defeat is just a pain for Manchester United, essentially. I mean, joy for Wolves, but not good enough for United. So on that, yeah. And as for Wolves, if I don't know how they're going to perform in the next few games. I mean, it's too early again to tell in Victor Perez's tenure to see if that's essentially what's going to happen in the next few games, and that's a sign of things to come for Wolves. You know, they're going to be a lot more competitive, but if they're able to form like that, I think they would survive the Premier League again this season. But if not, then, you know, they're going to have to play things by ear, I guess, and see how they're going to perform the rest of the year. Right, Liverpool and Leicester. Again, just another story essentially for Liverpool, continuing the hot run of form. They've been fantastic despite going 1-0 down within 6 minutes. Cody Gakpo's goal was brilliant. Curtis Jones' goal, classic Liverpool goal. Getting the ball in the getting the ball in the box, and just hopefully a player is there to convert close range. Mohamed Salah, so it was a really good goal. I think Leicester put up a really good fight in the first half until when Gakpo scored the equaliser. I think had Gakpo not scored the equaliser to wrap up the half, I think the complexion would be a lot more different. You know, Liverpool would have probably been a lot more pushy moving forward. In the second half, they would have taken a slightly more risk. But, you know, being, you know, level at half time, and considering how they just dominated again, despite, you know, Leicester scoring the early goal. Yeah, you know, Liverpool ultimately going to find a way to win. At least the bare minimum, we're getting chances to try to score. Darwin Núñez obviously still missing a couple of his shots, but it doesn't matter, does it? It didn't matter whatsoever. They still managed to win the game by 3-1. It's a great result from Liverpool's perspective again. And the gap at the top table continues to increase little bit by little bit. To compare them to City, they're now 14 points clear, 1-4. And we're just like not even halfway there yet. And Liverpool have a game in hand. That gap could extend to 17 points. That to me just shows how good Liverpool have been this season and how diabolical City have been as of late. But 6 points the gap at the top of the table. I mean, from Liverpool to Arsenal, with a game in hand again in Liverpool's favour, you've got to just respect the fact that Liverpool have just been sensational. And yes, if nothing goes wrong, they really should be winning the league. I mean, even if Salah posted his Christmas post rather, they need the worst downfall in history, in my opinion, now to just capitulate. So I just don't see it happening at this point in time. But I mean, the probability is just in Liverpool's favour, essentially. Yes, they could still mess up the league if somehow they, you know, lose a couple of games and Arsenal and Chelsea just suddenly, you know, choose to be better again, or be better than them. But otherwise, I think, yeah, Liverpool should be winning the league. As for Leicester, I mean, another defeat. I mean, this is a game where they probably should have expected defeat, and you know, it's just one of those games really that they've tried, I guess, at the start, run out of steam, I guess, and that's about it really from Leicester. It's a game they just got to move on, really, just got to I mean, the expectation for me is when it comes to such games, just to try to play the best football that you can. There's no need to deviate from whatever tactics that you have, and just try to stick to that. And it's a learning curve, it's a learning point. So yeah, that's it for this one. Right, Brighton and Brentford. Again, a game where I felt Brighton should have won that game, despite me predicting that Brentford would have won. But Brentford, I just felt they didn't really turn it up here in this one. Brighton deserved to win, 100%. Again, chances not being taken, and Sisso hitting the post. I think that was their best chance. Obviously, I think Flecken as well made some good saves. Whistler's goal would have been really dangerous. I mean, it was offside, obviously, but a really good finish. I think if that goal stood, I mean, if it was onside and that goal stood, again, the complexion of the game would be really, really different. Again, Brighton lacking that finishing product. They're now winners in the last 6 Premier League games now. And again, it's not like you didn't have the chances. It's arguably just like City and Everton essentially had everything in their favour, had the chances to win the game, just didn't convert. Nothing more to say really. It's again not a very good run of form from Brighton. I mean, considering we're on the Premier League table right now, they're 10th, which I mean is still close to Newcastle. We're only 3 points behind them, but one we can only wonder, had they just continue a really good run of form, and as if they had not had a torrid run of form, they would really be up there in the Champions League spots. It could have been a very different story for Brighton so far this season, but unfortunately, the story is that they're struggling as of late, and they just need to pick up again, unfortunately, and they just need to find ways to do so. And as for Brentford, I mean, you know, they've held a 0-0 draw in this game. It's not the end of the world for Brentford, I guess, but still, I feel that, you know, they can be better for Brentford. I think there's more potential than just, you know, scraping a 0-0 draw, despite, you know, Brighton being a very good side. So yeah, that's my take on that. There's not really much to say about this one. I think, you know, it honestly just felt a bit iffy, and you know, I think Brighton deserved to win, but ultimately they didn't, and Brentford just get a point away. I mean, it's not too bad, but I mean, there's still a lot of work to do. So yeah. Right, to wrap it off, Arsenal Ipswich. Obviously, Kai Havertz's only goal for the game managed to help them get the 1-0 win over the line. Yes, I think Arsenal smashed Ipswich in general again, but obviously not that 4-0 result that I was anticipating. But, you know, to only get by a goal to nil, it's still a win, as I said, and they did it, and they've gotten a win, nothing more. And yeah, Ipswich were just nowhere again. You know, it's going to be tough for Ipswich to fight against an Arsenal side that's just that good at this point in time. But yeah, Arsenal have been fantastic in this one as well. Maybe the result doesn't really show, but still really, really good. And I think defensively, Arsenal are still really sound. I mean, conceding only 16 goals in 18 games, and that's just, I mean, Liverpool 17-17 is also really good. But yeah, ultimately, I felt nothing went wrong for Arsenal in that game. I mean, ultimately, they would have hoped to just score, I'd say, more goals. But you know, a 1-0 win is still a really good result. I mean, that's all they needed. They leapfrogged Chelsea. They've got their objective for the week, and they can just look forward to the next game. So straightforward. Nothing really much to say except, yeah, you just need to continue this run of form, trying to challenge Liverpool for the title. And that's about it. As for Ipswich, yeah, the 10th Premier League defeat already, which is not very good. But again, it's expected, isn't it? As I said, they're playing like a Luton, where they're going to try to do what they can to win games, but it's not going to be easy moving forward, and it can only progressively get harder. So yeah, that's the state of that's how it is at the moment for Ipswich. But yeah, that'll be, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and of course, thank you very much for the support that you guys have shown throughout all these videos so far. Look forward to the next video, which will be the pre-game show for Game Week 19, and I'll see you guys then. But yeah, again, drop a like on the video if you guys have enjoyed this one, and of course, subscribe if you're new around here. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, goodbye.